What is the difference between sensitivity and intuition and full-blown psychic powers? Well, frankly, I think that they all build on each other, and learning how to harness these abilities, for example, even learning the difference between your intuition and your anxiety, is the most important thing, because your spidey senses are extremely important. And guess what, Diva? They show up in your astrological profile. And when I can tell that someone is really, really psychic, whether or not they even know it yet, this is exactly what I see in their birth chart. So let me ask you, do you have these signatures in yours? Let's find out at our tea party. Hello, and welcome to AstroloTea with Aliza Kelly. I'm your host and your spiritual friend, Aliza Kelly, and I'm so happy that you're here. On Wednesdays, we have a tea party. This is where we unpack different parts of astrology that shape your life. Today, we're talking about the 7 most psychic placements in a birth chart. But on Mondays, I'm also going to find you wherever you are, wherever you get your podcast, Diva. I will always have your weekly brew. This is where I share personalized horoscopes for every single sign, so you'll always know exactly what is in store and how to prepare. And of course, thank you for being here too. Thank you for supporting this brand new podcast in its earliest days. I would so deeply appreciate if you could take a moment to give me a 5-star rating. Nothing else will do. Give me a review. I want to know what you think. I want to know what your chart is like. And then, of course, follow, subscribe. Make sure that you are always getting the latest and hottest pour. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining me on this new adventure. But that's enough of that. We have a tea party to attend. We'll be right back after this quick break. Welcome to a brand new episode of AstroloTea. This is our tea party, and I am so glad that you're here. This tea party is coming to you live from Lilydale, which, if you don't know, is a literal psychic town in very, very far upstate New York, like Buffalo, Niagara Falls area. I'm kidding about us being live from Lilydale, though j'adore. I would love. How fun would that be? So fabulous. I've actually never been to Lilydale, but I would love to go. Lilydale was established in the 1870s during the spiritualist movement. And interestingly, T/tank, there are no coincidences, we are about to have a lot of outer planets in the same positions that they were in the 1870s. So maybe we are on the precipice of establishing a new Lilydale. Yes, this is the beginning of a new psychic revolution, and we are going to be leading the way on it, paving le way, okay? And maybe after this episode, you can help me incorporate a whole new township. I'm kidding. No, I'm not. I am not kidding, because we are going to be talking about how you can tap into your psychic powers, divas, and this is so important. I have to spill le brew, chocolat bleu, on the 7 most psychic signatures I see in a birth chart. And basically, if you have one of these, you are guaranteed to be on the psychic spectrum. Now, I know that there are a lot of negative associations associated with the term psychic. And often we may conflate the term psychic with a scammer or a charlatan, or, you know, the stereotype of a Hollywood fake fortune teller who's like, you know, turning on the fog machine and taking your money from your wallet, right? We have been told wisely to be wary of these people with good reason. But honey, there are a lot of shitty people out in the world, right? Not just shitty fake psychics. There are shitty business people. There are shitty people in every industry. I mean, I would argue that perhaps there are more shitty people in big business than we should ever even fear a psychic person. But, you know, needless to say, shitty people are shitty people. And I want you, at least for this episode, to try to separate your association with like fake scammers who are trying to rob you and prey on your insecurities or your grief or your vulnerability from the actual experience of being psychic. Because believe it or not, those associations, those feelings of shame around this term, shame or fear or skepticism or judgment, suspicion may actually be holding you back from tapping in to your own psychic powers. And honey, I genuinely believe that everyone has psychic abilities, because I don't think that psychic abilities are supernatural. And I also don't think that they're that rare, T. I think that psychic abilities are an extension of our natural senses, which, as a reminder, touch, taste, smell, sound, and sight. And I think when people really lean into their senses, which ones are strongest, which ones are weakest, they play with those spaces, we can become very deeply aware of our connection to the physical realm, the tangible realm, as well as the realms that exist adjacently. The astral realm of dreams and magic and manifestation, the past realm of ancestors and battlefields and ghosts and memories, the future realm of premonitions and possibilities and trust and divine timing, and of course, the spaces of spirits and angels and guides and the ineffable knowing that comes through your intuition and your connection to your own spidey senses. Being psychic is not just about seeing the future, okay? It is about being so deeply connected to the present that you can exist across all of these different dimensions. Now, I find it helpful to get to know my friends, the Claires, who, let's imagine as, a group of popular girls, a la Heather's Mean Girls, except they're nice and witchy and magical and sensitive and empathetic, but they're also badass and sassy and fabulous because, that's a good way of personifying our psychic abilities too. Understanding and getting to know the Claires is super helpful because it really reveals how our psychic abilities are amplifications of our existing senses. So, without further ado, allow me to introduce you to my girlies, the Claires. First, meet clairvoyance, clear seeing. Clairvoyance is perhaps the most theatrical, Hollywood favorite of the Claires because it's literally like apparitions. It's giving That's So Raven. It's like having clear images of whatever your psychic experience is, whether it's picking up on ghosts or seeing the future, seeing the past, seeing something that happened. Clairvoyance, very, very cool. I will say that in my experience, very few people actually have this ability. Clairvoyance is very rare and very difficult. So even though it is the most sort of like widely discussed, it's the Claire with the best publicist. It is not the Claire that is actually probably going to be the one that you are connected to, at least in the early days of your psychic journey. The next one is clairaudience. Clairaudience is clear hearing. So this is when you receive messages that come through as statements. I know somebody who gets, these who has this sort of like narrator who just sort of like drops in important intuition to them. This could also be something that you strengthen through listening to music or through hearing nature sounds or through just connecting to your sense of hearing at large. But clairaudience is getting your intuition through your hearing. Claircognizance is clear knowing, and this is different than the others because there isn't really a narration around it. Claircognizance is just getting something, understanding it. It sort of just drops in. It's a download. You just have it all figured out in an instant. There's a lot of people, especially with strong Mercury placements, who have claircognizance because they just get it. They just understand. And intuition for them is very cerebral. Then we have clairsentience. Clairsentience is clear feeling. Clairsentience is having a clear feeling in your body around something. It could be like, yes, every time I get this feeling in my stomach or this feeling in my throat, this feeling in my hands, that is what this signals for me. I have this direct line to my intuition and to my understanding. But it could also be, and I use this for clear feeling of like touching things too. Having a clear sensory experience of the clear feeling is another way that clairsentience can show up for you. Then there's clairalience, which is clear smelling. This is a really cool one, and I actually find that a lot of people have this because scent is so deeply attached to memory that clairalience is something that is accessible to us and is something that we can, if you're someone who loves like the smell of perfumes or candles or certain cooking smells remind you of a relative or have certain connotations, like strengthening that will also allow you to open up your own psychic portals. And then finally, we have clairgustance, which is clear tasting. This is a little bit more of a niche one, but could be amazing for someone who really understands food, who understands how to discern different flavor profiles. Maybe they are a coffee expert or a wine expert, or they're a baker, or they really are connected to that sense of taste. That could be something where you also receive lots of messages and intuition from. This could also look like getting a taste in your mouth around something. So having a taste in your mouth when something is about to happen is another manifestation of clairgustance. Now think about my clairs and consider which one of the girlies resonate with you the most. And of course, you can also get to know them more by exploring a different clair every day of the week even. I mean, you could just do 1 week where you're like, on Monday, I'm going to do clairvoyance. The next day, I'm going to do clairsentience. Then I'm going to do clairalience, whatever it is, so that you can experiment with them, see what comes up, and tune into these particular expressions of intuition and sensitivities and downloads. Okay, now the last thing I want to mention before we get into the astrology of it all is the important distinction between anxiety and intuition. If you have been with me on this journey for a while, if you have been following my work or reading the things that I write and put out in the world, you know that I feel very, very passionately about understanding and discerning anxiety from intuition. And it's very simple. Anxiety is a siren and intuition is a whisper. If you are experiencing something getting louder and bigger and jumping from one concept to the next concept, and each concept raises the stakes and it gets louder and crazier and more unruly and more chaotic, honey, it's not intuition. Intuition would never do that. Intuition would never show up like that. Intuition is gentle. It's unemotional. It's almost clinical. It's quiet, it's calm, which also means that if you have anxiety in a moment, don't even worry about trying to listen to your intuition because you're not going to be able to hear it. I'm sorry. Intuition cannot compete with the siren, with the annoying siren that is anxiety, because in order for you to be able to receive your intuition, you need to have a calm nervous system. You need to be in a moment of quiet and stillness, which is why establishing a meditation practice or going on a walk or just taking some time away from whatever your chaos is so critical, because that is how you build an individual relationship with your intuition. Okay. So now that we know that we're all psychic, now that we're all moving to Lilydale, now that we have met the clairs, we know the difference between anxiety and intuition, let me share with you the 7 things that when I see them in a birth chart, I'm like, yep, no questions here. This baby is psychic. The baby is psychic. This child is a gifted one. And when I say this child is a gifted one, I mean you, an adult person. You, my little baby, my psychic baby. Let's get into it. The first indicator of psychic placements that I see when I look at a chart is, you guessed it, honey, it's strong Piscean energy. It is the first placement that we are going to talk about, and that is somewhat ironic because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, but obviously it has to be the first in something. I mean, come on, Pisces placements have to wait so long to get their horoscope, so let them be first here. At the tea party, Pisces are the first to take a sip because they are truly the ones who are inviting us to the realm. They're inviting us into the astral, paving the way for all things spiritual. And that's because Pisces energy is innately rooted in duality. Pisces is symbolized by the fish that are swimming in two different directions. Pisces is always flowing between two things, right? Fantasy and reality, the past and the future, this world and somewhere else, another realm. Pisces exists within that liminal between space. It is the energy of thresholds and transitions and everything that exists within these halfway systems that cannot be explained in just the tangible, straightforward experience alone. Pisces is the ocean, right? It's incredibly, profoundly, vastly, impossibly deep. And the ocean is impossible to explore. Like, honestly, what even is the ocean, okay? Is it a black hole? Is it where time folds in on itself? Probably. And that is the Pisces experience. So when Pisces shows up as one of your personal placements, so I'm talking about your sun, moon, or rising, Mercury, Venus, or Mars, you are someone whose personality exists between worlds. Pisces sun, right? The sun is identity. So this is someone whose identity is baked in these between threshold spaces. It transcends just what you would see at face value. You as a person, your identity is something that exists between these realms. The moon is your emotional inner world. So here we find someone who is really nurtured through their intuition. Your rising is your perspective on reality. So a Pisces rising is someone who recognizes that life is more than meets the eye, that life actually has all of these different dimensions to it. Mercury is how you communicate and think. So someone who has a Mercury in Pisces is going to be someone who is really having these cerebral experiences that are rooted around their intuition. Venus is what you value. Venus is exalted in Pisces because there is this exalted appreciation for magic and unconditional love that exists on this otherworldly level. And then Mars is how you take action. We have a whole Tea Party AstroloTea episode on Mars through the signs, but Mars in Pisces is someone who takes action as inspired by their intuition. So if you have Pisces in any of these personal placements, congratulations, honey. You are hardwired to exist in the between spaces, which means that you are probably psychic. Pisces energy carries ancestral wisdom and deep karmic memory with it on a cellular level. It literally is the ocean that holds everything that has ever been. I mean, think about everything that exists within the ocean. It's giving Atlantis, but that same depth can also be really scary and dangerous. You can drown in it if you are not grounded, okay? So Pisces placements always have to be careful of escapism, addiction, over-idealization, martyrdom, basically the urge to just float away or just sink down, right? Instead of swimming or transmuting it or being like, oh no, I actually know how to navigate this impossible oceanic body of water. So with strong Pisces energy, your lesson, your journey, your homework is to really practice lucid dreaming on a metaphorical level. Stay awake as you exist between all of these different spaces. Because when you ground your magic, right, when you anchor down in your psychic abilities, you become a channel that is able to receive everything that exists from the other realms, but also exist within the realm that you are supposed to be in, which is this one right here, diva, knock, knock, you're alive. You don't need to chase enlightenment because you're already in it, honey. You're already circling it. You're there. And I know that because it's in your chart. Oh, but honey, we are just getting started. But you already knew that, didn't you? A little psychic humor. We love to see it. More psychic placements are coming up after this quick break, so stick around. Welcome back, friends. Today we are teeing on the most psychic placements in a birth chart. And we just talked about how big Pisces energy can really bring us into those otherworldly realms. But let's rage on because we have 6 more placements to explore. Here we go. Now let's talk about the most misunderstood, mysterious, sacred, spiritual, liminal corner of the birth chart. You know it, you love it, the 12th house. Now, this is the final frontier of the birth chart. It is the last house. And just as a reminder, last week's tea party was all about the 12 houses of the birth chart. So if you haven't had a chance to check that episode out yet, be sure to do it because you're going to get all of the tea on all of the houses. But the 12th house is the end of the line, baby. It is the liminal space between life and death. It is literally where the conscious mind and the ego go to die. They dissolve so that the soul emerges without any physical form or trappings. Cool, scary, interesting, mysterious, magical, a lot. So if you have planets in the 12th house, they are really working overtime because, yes, they're here, they're part of your lived experience, but they're also not on this planet at all, right? They're doing something else entirely. They are in a totally different dimension. Now, I have found that people who have strong 12th house energy in their chart seem to always have the experience of being in one dimension and another. This could look like lots of different things. This could look like someone who constantly finds themselves in relationships with people who are long distance. This could look like somebody who has a very different public life than a private life. This could look like someone who definitely keeps a lot of secrets or struggles with addiction. This could also look like someone who has a huge creative well inside of them that needs to be integrated into their reality. If you have placements in the 12th, you exist between realms, period. For example, the moon in the 12th is going to feel everything from everyone, the collective joy and grief and stress and tension all flowing through them at the same time, which is a duality because, honey, some of that isn't even yours, right? Mercury in the 12th thinks in symbols, often channeling ideas before they can even understand where they came from. If you have Venus in the 12th, this is love on a deeply karmic psychic level. You fall for people that you have already met in other lifetimes. And the question is, do you really need to be with them in this one too? Tea. Now, this is the area of the chart that is most associated with solitude, mental health, subconscious patterning, and then surrender. So it's a very important place to spend time in and to nurture and to get to know, because this is where intuition becomes memory and memory is intuition, and it's a feedback loop of timeless knowing and getting things and feeling things. This is ancestral energy, it's karmic connections, it's spiritual depth and magic all rolled into one human experience. It's a lot to keep track of. But through practice of stillness and reflection and compassion and magic and devotion, 12th house people can really tune into their individual psychic abilities and the collective experience to help us all understand what actually matters. Because 12th house people are meant to be psychic, to help us all more deeply connect with what is truly important in this dimension, in this lifetime. So next up, let us move over to another mystical water world. Yes, honey, I am talking about Neptune's domain. Neptune is the planet of illusion and delusion and magic and spirituality and mystery and creativity and psychic powers too. So when you have a prominent Neptune in your chart, for example, if you have Neptune in the 1st house or the 4th house or the 7th house or the 10th house, because those houses are the embodiment houses, that is really where we see planets manifest in our real life, or if Neptune is attached to a personal planet like the sun, the moon, or Mercury, you are a Neptunian being. And you, my friend, you are the captain of a different world. You feel everything. You feel the sound of someone's voice. You feel the shape of their absence. You feel the heaviness in a room before you even walk into it. You feel me? You are clocking everything. It is clocking to you, okay? You are someone who 100% cries during commercials. You can start to empathize with a friend for going through a heartbreak before they even get broken up with. Oh my gosh. Or you are someone who, when you're in a creative flow state, you get like truly possessed because you become a channel, not just of that practice, but of spirit itself. Neptune's language in totality is a metaphor. Neptune speaks through dreams and through rhythm and through flow and through music. It is the universal medium of emotion. So even if you haven't been calling yourself a psychic yet, you know, because it is undeniable, that your life has always unfolded through synchronicities, right? You are always thinking about people before you get a text from them. You are always thinking about a song and then you go, to a grocery store and it's playing there and it's super random. You are always noticing repeating numbers. You are always recognizing these subtle hints, these subtle signals from the universe that are tank. There are no coincidences. And that is Neptune, honey. That is Neptune and its current flowing through you in all aspects of life. But also keep in mind, my Neptunian friends, that Neptune hates boundaries. It doesn't know boundaries. It has no idea what boundaries are at all. So because of that, it's very easy to find yourself dissolving, right? Getting lost in the sauce that isn't even your own recipe, honey. And that could be disgusting and it could be dangerous. So it's important to recognize that if you have strong Neptune in your chart, you need to be careful of losing yourself in fantasy or using substances to try to make sense of an experience that is difficult to put into words, or distracting yourself through unhealthy or toxic relationships with unavailable people because you're constantly trying to figure out what this other dimension is that you exist in. Honey, you live in the fog and there's no getting out of it, but you can learn how to navigate it, okay? Hydration, sleep, boundaries, communication, sacred hygiene for a Neptunian soul. You have to anchor yourself before you can channel that intuition and turn it into your psychic abilities. But once you learn how to integrate it, it is transcendent. And when you learn to trust your intuition without drowning in your emotions, your intuition really becomes a form of magic, an expression and an extension of this greater mystical experience of being alive. Our next placement that screams psychic magic witch is when you have a moon in a water sign. Yes, you knew it was coming. You knew it. The moon represents your emotional inner world. So when you have the moon in a water sign, in this fluid and magical energy, honey, your intuition, your sensitivities, your feelings, all of that is food for you, okay? Lunar food that nourishes you and sustains you, and you need it to live. That's the tea. You know things before they happen. And managing all of these feelings, understanding the depths and the experiences behind them is absolutely critical to your emotional regulation and your ability to take the feelings and the sensitivities and actually direct that energy into psychic abilities. If you have a Cancer moon, which is the moon's moon, it's the moon in its domicile, the moon is the ruler of Cancer, you are an empath, You are a nurturer. You are a natural medium, because Cancer moons are constantly emotional barometers, right? They can sense a pressure drop in a relationship before the storm hits. They're like, ooh, my fingers are swelling. Something is coming. They absorb the moods of everything and everyone who they love, sometimes too much. And their intuition for them is deeply rooted in their early pre-verbal experiences. It's maternal, it's protective. It is how the Cancer moon learned how to survive. They just know because they had to know, right? They feel it in their bodies. Their intuition is a sensitivity, and their sensitivities, which can be a lot to manage, are also extraordinarily important because it allows them to have so much emotional data about the world around them. So even though they're constantly sort of oscillating, waxing and waning through their sensitivities, all of that information that they're collecting through the ebb and the flow, through the movement, through that lunar connection is going to serve them and allow them to really figure out, okay, how can I move from this dimension to another? Now, if you have a Scorpio moon, you are a psychic detective. Okay, Nancy Drew, supernatural detective, if you will, if you please. Yes, s'il vous plaît. Nothing escapes your perception. You can read motives. You can decode the silence. You can sniff out the truth, even if it comes as a text message. Scorpio moons are investigators of the unseen. They are drawn to the shadow. They are drawn to the intensity. They are drawn to transformation. And their intuition ultimately comes from their ability to have the courage to look at things, the willingness to confront what other people avoid. However, because there is so much stimuli coming at the Scorpio moon, the challenge for people who have this placement is to discern what actually matters in all of the information that you receive, and to trust the timing in which you receive it, not to micromanage or try to control things so that you can have the power. You always have the power, okay? You're a Scorpio moon. You don't have to rip off the veil. Just wait for a light breeze to lift it up, and you will see everything you need to see. I promise. Now, if you have a Pisces moon, hello sisters, hello brothers, hello fellow beings of the dreamscape. Now, as a fellow Pisces moon, I want to share something with you, and you can tell me if you relate, okay? Now, before I knew how to work with this energy, the energy, let's call it the psychic ability, I used to get something that I would refer to as the twisty spins. And it was this feeling in my stomach of knowing, this feeling that I really needed to listen to my intuition around something. And often I would get it because at that point, it was so late in the game that I had been denying and ignoring my intuition. So I don't really get the twisty spins anymore because I am very attuned to my sensitivities and my perceptions, and I know how to use my psychic abilities. But I'm curious if anyone else who has a Pisces moon had some version of the twisty spinnies. Because for us, listening and learning how to understand our intuition, like our intuition as opposed to absorbing everyone else's intuition, is really, really important. We feel everything. We feel everyone else's joys and pains and sufferings and wins and losses. We have deja vus like every other second. We have prophetic visions. We have moments where we feel like we are living outside of ourselves, which is very, very trippy. But ultimately, this is a very, very, very psychic signature to have in a chart. And it is an indication that you are nurtured and sustained and emotionally regulated by your own psychic knowing. Now, the greatest gift that you can have with this placement is learning how to incorporate boundaries into it, understanding your emotions and the distinction between what's yours and everyone else's, And learning how to do that and to discern that is critical. Because once you are able to be like, oh, this feeling that I have, these twisty spinnies, they belong to me versus my mother, versus this person I care about, versus this person at a restaurant that I've never met. Once you know how to distinguish what's yours from other people's, you don't have to feel so burdened by being enmeshed in everyone else's shit. And you can actually just learn how to harness your own skills and become the psychic diva that you have always wanted to be, that you've always known that you are. That's where we play. That's how we win. That's how we ball. There's still a lot more to discuss. I have 3 more placements that are absolutely psychic powerhouses, okay? We will be right back after this very quick break. Okay, now the next placement to discuss is Mercury through the water signs. That's Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, Mercury. So if you have Mercury in any of these places, hello, beautiful. Hello, gorgeous. Hello, you psychic, magical being. Now, Mercury is the planet of communication, which is about our cognition, how we process, how we interpret, how we express our ideas, how we understand and are understood. So when Mercury is in a water sign, it's not just analyzing, honey, it is absorbing. It exists and communicates between worlds, which makes it very sensitive, very intuitive, and very psychic. Mercury in Cancer is memory. Your intuition lives in the past, in family patterns, in your childhood, in the energetic residue of every conversation you've ever had in your whole fucking life. You know things before you can prove them because you have felt them. Cancer Mercury remembers what others have forgotten, and that memory becomes guidance into other dimensions. Now, Mercury in Scorpio is truly telepathic. You are not listening to what people say. You don't need to, because you are hearing what they mean. You get me? You catch tiny, subtle shifts in cadence, in breath, secrets baked into everyday dialogue. Scorpio Mercury is investigative. It's layered. It's magnetic. There's an inner radar that is attuned to the truth. The truth, of course, about the multiple dimensions that exist, right? You understand everything, which makes you hardwired for these magical, otherworldly experiences. And then finally, we have Mercury in Pisces, a channeler. Through images, through sound, through symbols, through sensations. You process information through your intuition, through your imagination, and most importantly, through your empathy. Your thoughts come in waves, often arriving through art or music or just like, sudden downloads, right? Mercury in Pisces cannot separate logic from emotion because it knows they were never separate to begin with, honey. Mercury in Pisces has a mind that is ready and willing to receive whatever needs to come through. The hard part is figuring out how to express those downloads and actually make sure that they get to the right people. For all 3 of these Mercury placements, the key is learning how to balance fact and feeling. You don't need to justify your intuition. You just need to figure out how to translate it. And when you do, you can become a psychic medium, and I am not even kidding. Next, this is another personal one for me, but shout out to my fellow 8th housers. 8th house, stand up. Where you at? Where you at? The 8th house is the area of the chart that I call the house of alchemy. And when someone has significant placements here, they don't just experience life on a surface level. They experience it through intensity, through transformation, and through deep psychological depth. People with strong 8th house energy develop a kind of awareness that comes from navigating power, navigating loss or intimacy, deep, heavy emotions, pain, tethering, and also the magic and mystery and potential that comes from manifesting and integrating and blending up all of these different dimensions of life into a brew that only you know. You know what I mean? Now, 8th house energy people learn to understand their intuition because at some point in their life, it was linked to their survival. At some point, they depended on it. And as a result, they become highly attuned to subtext, tone shifts, body language, inconsistencies. They know how to exist in multiple realities because they know deeply, personally, that life is never just one dimension. There is always something going on beneath the surface. So if you have your sun there, for example, your identity is forged through intensity. You are someone who needs to know what is real because you need to figure out what is real to you. You need to figure out what's hidden, what's actually driving people, and you go all the way in because this allows you to understand who you are as a complex being. And once you figure out your truth, you can figure out truth at large, truth as a concept. And then that gives you access to dimensions and intuition that other people who haven't lived the life that you have lived would not necessarily be able to easily understand. So you become a guide to that. If you have Venus in the 8th house, relationships become the channel. You read people through intimacy, through closeness, through intensity. You feel attachment, you feel desire, you feel those emotional shifts. And for you, it is very sexy, it's very lusty, but it also requires deep boundaries and trust and anchoring in yourself so you don't lose yourself in the process as your psychic abilities become intertwined with your sexuality. And then even outer planets here can be very powerful. Jupiter in the 8th expands your capacity to understand spirituality and information. Saturn in the 8th is really learning how to drop into lessons relating to your own maturation process pertaining to how you had to survive and exist and find strength, right? You learn to read between the lines over time, and that develops into a real sense of maturity and recognition of all of the variables that make life hard and beautiful. The psychic aspect of the 8th house is really rooted in truth, in one of my favorite terms, which is veracity, a devotion to the truth. There is a sensitivity to this threshold. And because this house is so intertwined with merging, 8th house people often pick up on other people's energy as if it were their own because everything is going into that cauldron, right? They have to figure out what matters here, what matters as part of my unique brew, right? The work is learning how to differentiate your authenticity versus other people's bullshit, bringing in boundaries, bringing in obligations, recognizing what your limits are, recognizing where things can be integrated, where things shouldn't be integrated, and understanding your own strengths, your own magic, your own multidimensionality, your own complexity, how to face what other people avoid, and how to see clearly in the dark. The 8th house is the house of witches. So it makes sense that so many of us have placements there. And then last but not least, I want to direct your attention to a lesser known placement. This is an asteroid named Vesta. Now we are going to do a whole tea party on the asteroid soon, I promise. Let me know if you're really interested in that and then we'll bump it up. But Vesta is one of my favorite asteroids, and it is so deeply connected to psychic abilities. In mythology, Vesta was the keeper of the sacred flame, the goddess of the hearth whose fire was never allowed to go out. Her role wasn't to wander, to react, it was to tend, to maintain a steady, unwavering presence. The mythology of Vesta speaks directly to how this placement expresses psychic abilities, which is through sustained attention and deep, deep spiritual reverence. The power comes from what is protected, what is focused on, what is given devotion over time. And when you hold that psychic awareness steadily, when you really anchor into your intuition, you can honor the gift of your psychic abilities without getting lost in the sauce. So when Vesta is in a prominent place in your chart, in your first house, your fourth house, your seventh, your 10th, or it is making an aspect, especially a conjunction, so at the same point as a personal planet, there is an ability to enter a level of focus that really sharpens your intuition beyond the ordinary. Fundamentally, Vesta is about devotion. Vesta people access insight through sustained attention, through ritual, through returning to the same point again and again and again until something reveals itself. It's a different kind of psychic ability. It's one that really can be cultivated through practice rather than developed as a response to, chaotic circumstances. There is a beautiful, quiet confidence to Vesta's energy. And since we all have Vesta in our chart somewhere, because, everyone has every single planet and every single celestial body and every single sign in their chart go off, I encourage you to see where Vesta is in your chart and how, by understanding this asteroid and the role that it's playing in your chart, you can learn how to sharpen and strengthen your own intuitive powers in a very safe and grounded way. Because remember, my friends, your psychic abilities aren't here to fuck with you. They are here to help you. You have them for a reason. So don't be afraid to invite them to tea. I promise, they don't bite. Now, what did you think about today's episode? What resonated? What did you learn? What breakthroughs did you have? Let me know in those 5-star reviews. Let me know in your comments. And of course, tell your friends about AstroloTea with Aliza Kelly. Tell your family. Tell your enemies. Scandalous. It makes such a difference and really helps us build a community. I'll be back on Monday with your weekly brew OVS. That includes your horoscope. And then join me next Wednesday for another tea party. And make sure you tune in every Monday and every Wednesday for all new episodes of AstroloTea with Aliza Kelly. I'm on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. You can run, but you can't hide. I'll find you wherever you are. Thank you for being here.